life's going to throw things at you, and even when you type that address into the GPS and you're going to get there on time and everything's good, there's all these other factors that could come into play and change it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the eventual goal. You guys kind of reshape the plan. And
yeah, volatility is a real thing, right? It's like trying to fight uncertainty and volatility is like trying to fight gravity.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I got an extra special treat joining me in the Hit Lab today. And he shouldn't need an introduction. And that's kind of why he's here today, because we're here to fix that, right? So wait till you hear all the stuff that this dude has been behind and responsible for. So here is his proper introduction. He's the vice president of WestRiver Group, the president of Singularity University, and the CEO of Liquor Lab. Folks, welcome to the Hit Lab. Welcome to the Hitstreak. Aaron Vaccaro. Aaron, how we doing, baby?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me. I love the stuff you do on the podcast, and I especially love the Ted Lasso sign above the door when I came in.
Come on. We are huge Ted Lasso fans.
As all good people are.
So, folks, check this out. We're going to get into the story of Topgolf in just a minute, because this is one of the guys behind the scale and the sale of Topgolf. But since we brought up Ted Lasso, we're just going to stay there for a second. All right. We could talk about Ted Lasso all day long. So, in my opinion, I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. I've got believe signs everywhere. Okay. I've got pictures with the sign. I've got quotes everywhere at my home. You name it.
Love it.
But one of the greatest scenes in the history of television was when in Ted Lasso, when the soccer players they basically did the bye dance.
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a great moment, because that's when he finally built a team, right? And the culture turned around. They're all bought in, and they all went for it. And it was that is just such a sweet moment.
It's fact, and it's ironically that you say that. It's not even the fact that they did the dance. It's you understand how hard it is to get. Especially at that level, one of the highest levels of soccer players in the world, and all those egos and all those contracts, yet all those guys came together to do an in-sync dance.
And at the end, it's the fact that they're so excited that they nailed it.
Yes,
which shows he accomplished what he wanted to, which is to make it cool to care.
Absolutely.
And it's the fact that they're they all care, and it was so cool. That is the killer moment.
It truly is. And it's so cool because the one thing I felt like they did such a great job with on that show is it did not even when the characters went through turmoil, it didn't turn into the theme of the show. It always went back to what the show was actually about,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of themes there we can tie into all the other stuff we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, all right. So check it out. So I mentioned Topgolf. All right, everybody knows about Topgolf, especially here in Nashville. It is, well, I guess in every market it's the main attraction.
It is one of them, and it's funny you say that, because that was not always the case. I used to have to carry around pictures of Topgolf just to try to explain what it was. When you try to say, well, it's like a driving range with the bowling alley with the sports bar all at the same time, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's such disgraceful to the game of golf.
Yeah. That's part of the key though, is from the very beginning. I mean, we viewed it as standing on the shoulders of giants, right? It's not replacing golf. It's building on the history of golf. And that's why it was so critical to form partnerships with the PGA Tour and with golfers and with Callaway, because it was truly additive to the game and growing the game of golf, not replacing it.
Dude, hold on just a minute. See, there's been two hugely profound things that he said already out of the gates, right? Number one was the fact that he got all those guys to do that dance and be proud of it when they nailed it. They took pride in it, ownership in it. But, basically you took golf, you created a better mousetrap as a way to introduce the game to new people, which in turn, if they like Topgolf, they might entertain actual golf, right? Going out and playing around or whatever else it might be, right? So it's such a unique perspective to hear you say that, it's not ripping golf, it's actually paying homage to it, and it's very important that you do that to acknowledge the history.
Absolutely, yeah. And to back up a sec, that's an important point, because that's kind of a theme across a lot of stuff we invest in. I'm a partner at a firm called WestRiver Group, and I don't want to take too much credit, because I came in after Topgolf was already 10 or 12 years old. My partner Eric Anderson, who's the founder of WestRiver, he helped bring Topgolf from the UK to the US, and then build it into what it is today.
So it was in the UK first.
It actually started, it was founded by a couple brothers outside of London. They were engineers who love golf, Steve and Dave Jolliffe. They're now actually, they're founders of Putt Shack, which is also here in town.
Okay.
And they have a new concept too. But the Jolliffe brothers had this amazing idea of like, well, they basically took microchip technology, put it in the golf balls to see who could hit farther, to actually measure the distance.
Wow. Okay.
And then they added in the food, and it became Topgolf. Brought it to the US in 2004 and started building one after another. I came along in 2014 when they finally had decided, okay, we have enough proof points that we're going to really scale this thing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so my partner Eric took over as CEO, made a big investment from our investment firm, and then brought me in as chief of staff to help scale it. And so when I started, we had 11 locations, about 90 million in revenue. And then over the following 6-7 years, we built it up to, when we finally sold it to Callaway Golf in 2021, we had about $1.1 billion in revenue and 70 locations, and had been growing, building 10 a year for the last 6 years.
Wow.
And it was like a rocket ship.
So honestly, I mean, we could stay just on that story the whole entire episode, but I do want to stay there for a few more minutes just because, again, so tell me a little bit about your background. How do you even become qualified? You're in 9 locations, right? Going into how many?
I think we had now they just crossed 100.
I mean, so first, like, there's so much that goes into that we could unpack from demographic studies to know what markets to go into next. To then you got to find the real estate. Then you got to go through all the stuff to get approved, and then you got to market it, and you got to get it open, staff it, train it.
Totally. Yeah.
And I've been to multiple Topgolfs in multiple locations. Keep it. That's one of the hardest things to do is be brand consistent.
Yeah, totally.
In all the different locations and whatnot. That's one of the most difficult things in all of business to do, in my opinion.
Keep it on brand. Yeah, and that was really important to us, right? It's funny. We there's the difference between a franchise concept and own and operated concept. Most multi-unit retail, like fast food restaurants and things, are franchised, and so you actually have a whole bunch of different owners all over the country, and you have a single brand that they're all implementing. But some of the best customer experiences and cultures in the world are like Chipotle and Starbucks, and some of these concepts where every location is actually owned and operated by a central company, and so you can push down that culture all the way down to the front lines, and you have one owner, one leadership team, and you have this structure where we actually controlled, like at Topgolf, it was critical all the way down to the bay level where our servers are serving people, and we actually can set and articulate the culture and the brand experience and all the details that make it so feel like it's all perfectly on brand, right?
It's such a cool thing because if you're a avid golfer and you just want to go to the range, it'll serve you that way.
Yep.
There's multiple spots to hang. It's funny, I've been there with my wife and son for multiple reasons. We've been there as customers on the range, just to hit balls, to prep for a charity tournament. We've been there to actually keep score and compete.
Yep.
I'm always telling them, I'm like, that's not golf, but it's a different sport, right? So,
I might argue that. So we actually talked about, one of the things we tried to do was we're actually redefining golf to be from, it has to be 18 holes in 4 hours and keep score and all these things, to golf is the essence of golf is anytime you're using a golf club to strike a ball.
Okay.
Whether that's at a simulator or at a driving range or a Topgolf or on the golf course. And so we're kind of expanding what golf is.
Yeah.
By redefining what the actual, what that moment is. And that was, part of what I was saying earlier is we're not trying to replace golf. We're trying to build and bring more people into the game.
That's right.
And it's actually, I'll talk about this with Liquor Lab too, but the whole idea is take something that's aspirational and not super accessible to everybody. There's some barriers to entry, but it's timeless and it's part of our culture and it's this cool thing. But in the case of golf, it's like you've got to buy expensive clubs and get a tee time and wear funny clothes, and you have to learn how to hit, and it's all these barriers. And so what we did with Topgolf is say, you know what? You don't have to do all that. Just show up as you are. We'll put a golf club in your left hand and a beer in your right hand and just swing it that way.
Yeah.
And have a great time. And that's golf. And that's where you start.
Got it.
So that's an investment thesis we have across our portfolios, taking things that are these timeless, aspirational experiences that people want to do, but there's some kind of barrier to entry. We break it down. We make it engaging, accessible, and easy for people to try for the first time.
Well, there's a lot of excellence in what you just said, because again, as a guy that played baseball at one of the highest levels on earth, when I went back and coached my son's 9-year-old team, it's not the same sport, but it is. It's different to it's different to each person, right? So baseball was different is different to my now 15-year-old than it is to me even. It's what I mean? It's my own what's the word I'm looking for? It's my own, I don't know, description or understanding of each, right? So I'm not playing golf, as a guy that considers himself a golfer because I play all 8 times a year, but I can score okay. I'm not playing the same sport that Tiger's playing.
Oh yeah, no, you're doing a totally different thing.
That's right, and that's why it's totally fair. But at the same time, my son has played drums in what's the name? Especially here in Nashville, there's a big, awesome, badass venue that his band played in that we sat in the audience and did, which was kind of awesome. At like 10 o'clock at night. So, what's the name of that? I don't even remember the name of the spot. What's the name of the concept that's the live music venue that's in Topgolf here in Nashville? Do you remember?
Oh, the Cowan.
That's it, the Cowan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was Nashville here was a special one because that was the first time we built a music venue onto a.
Dude, it's awesome in there.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Like it's a real full blown music venue.
Totally. Oh yeah, that was that was a unique one. Topgolf Nashville was a special one for us because Nashville is a market where we're super excited about. We've invested in multiple concepts here, and it's just become such a destination for entertainment.
And the food was good.
And the food is good. Oh yeah, Topgolf for years. I don't know, I don't know what they're doing now, but for years we had 90% of the food was from scratch, and it was all fantastic. Agreed.
Well, dude, I told you we could stay on top. Topgolf is just so fascinating, but everybody knows it. It's kind of a common thread type thing. It's a household name. So, well, you've mentioned the Liquor Lab a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about the Liquor Lab.
So the Liquor Lab is an earlier stage concept that we've been invested in for a few years. I recently took over as CEO at the end of the year, after having been a fan and believer for a long time and board member. It's at a stage where we want to scale it up now, and so that's kind of my expertise. And what Liquor Lab is like cooking classes for cocktails, but it's a mixology experience where you go in and you learn from real bartenders that bartend at some of the best places around town, and teach you how to make your favorite drinks. And so we have got a location down just off Broadway on 2nd, and then we have a second location up in Louisville.
We're on 2nd Avenue down on Broadway. I'm very familiar with.
Oh, it's like 2nd and Commerce.
Oh yeah,
right in the Pilcher building,
downstairs. Right where they rebuilt everything after the bomb went off.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that was not fun. We finally have our front door again after the.
Were you guys there before all that happened?
We were the first building that was not condemned.
Okay.
From the bomb. Yeah. So our building was damaged. We were shut down for a while. We recently reopened, and now that the street is reopened, it's a lot easier to find us. Yeah.
I mean, it was so sad and tragic what happened, because when I was a teenager and even into the early 2000s, 2nd Avenue was Broadway. Broadway was barren, and 2nd Avenue is where everybody hang.
Oh, it's a great spot, and it's coming back. I mean, last night there was people out all walking around, and it's a really good spot. And what's great though, it's funny, all of our classes are reservation only, and so you have to make a reservation in advance, and you got to know where you're going. And so in a way, the location doesn't actually matter that much, because we're not taking walk-in traffic. But at the same time, it's great because people come in, they make a couple cocktails, have a great experience, and then they can go out afterwards, walk right out the front door onto Broadway.
Yeah, that could be dangerous too. In a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, we serve food too. Don't worry.
That's right. So that's kind of cool, man, because bartending is bartending can be fun. It's kind of like those studios where people can go and learn to paint a little bit, and, and so on and so forth.
It's a similar theme to what we said with Topgolf, where you take something like making cocktails, like being a bartender. They're like rock stars, right?
Yeah.
In our culture, you go in and they're cool, and they have this mystical skill of like making drinks, and they've got the cool vibe. And so people want to learn how to do that. But again, there's these barriers to entry where you want to build a home bar, you got to buy 100 bottles and all the tools, and you got to get sticky and have the ice and all that stuff. And so we break down that barrier and say, look, just show up as you are. We'll put a shaker in your hand. We put all the ingredients in front of you and walk you step by step, learn how to make your favorite drinks.
It's awesome.
And then hopefully you can go home and impress your girlfriend or your family or whatever. Or the other thing we love is we teach people how to be a more confident drinker. Like you go to a cocktail bar, and you might not know the difference between an old fashioned and a Manhattan or whatever. We'll teach you that stuff so that you can go and you can order more confidently, and you can explore more confidently, and teach you to be a better, more confident drinker.
Folks, we're hanging with Aaron Vaccaro, the Vice President of WestRiver Group, the President of Singularity University, and the CEO of Liquor Lab. You can check him out online at liquorlab.com and on Instagram at liquorlab and at Aaron Vaccaro. All right, so the Liquor Lab, how many markets is it in as we sit today? And as we record today, this is April. We're in April of 2025.
That's right. We're in 2 markets right now, Nashville and Louisville.
Yep.
Our plan is to expand. My background is expanding these concepts all across the country. And
dude.
We've got ambitious plans.
All right, so can I? I'm gonna be a little selfish here.
Okay.
All right. I would say that scaling into multiple markets is something that I'm in the middle of learning how to do. Let's just say. Okay. So selfishly, I'm going to be like, I got an expert in here, and I'm going to ask him some questions. I'm going to learn a little bit today.
I love it. Yeah.
So all right. So when you get into 2, okay, what's the next number you're looking at? Is it 5 or is it 10? Like, are you doing one at a time? Are you doing them in are you scaling in 2 or 3 markets at a time? Where do you kind of start building the vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we start with one at a time.
Okay.
Until you feel like you got the playbook down, and it's the playbook for how to select a location, how to build it out, and then how to staff it and train, right? So the team that we have right now is doing a great job at our 2 locations. We're going to look for a 3rd and then a 4th. And then I think once we know we've got 4 different test sort of points, and we have a couple different sizes, couple different shapes, then we know, okay, we can start opening 2 or 3 or 5 a year. In the case of Topgolf, we got up to 10 a year. Wow. Which is like building, I mean, that's a $25 million project.
It's almost one a month.
Almost one a month. It's basically like building a minor league baseball stadium every month.
Right.
And we were doing that. We had a construction team managing everything all in-house and then with some partners. And so it's, it seems silly. Liquor Lab is a 5,000 square foot venue where we build this beautiful space, but it's tables and chairs and ice machines, and it's not a minor league baseball stadium.
Right.
So in theory, we should be able to scale pretty fast once we know it works.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. Again, it's there's a corporation, a chain of restaurants on the lower end of price called Cheddar's that a lot of people are familiar with. There's a few locations here in town. But when I was in the hospitality industry as an owner as well, I learned a lot about that stuff. And that was one of the first things I learned with my partner, Randy, had been in some corporations before. And he was like, Nick, so I could be mistaken, but he just used Cheddar's as the example. So I will too, whether it's fact or not. But he was like, dude, so the building, so Cheddar's are all new construction. So there's a real estate company that is owned by the Cheddar's Corporation that goes out and buys the real estate. And then they hire their own building company, their own contractor to build it. And then they buy all the furniture from their furniture company, and they buy their kitchen equipment from their kitchen equipment company. Then their hiring company, their staff company hires out all the people, and so on and so forth. It's a big circle of money where they're buying from the same shell company at the top. Mm-hmm. Everything's feeding into that. And I was like, that's brilliant. I want to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
There's definitely different models, that can work. In the case of Topgolf, Topgolf International owned everything, right? Yeah. It was one big company, but we had partners that were external, like Arco Construction is a big design build construction firm. We had EPR as a real estate financing company. So we had these partners that we knew were quality and could scale with us. So it's like they'd be able to run as fast as we could if we wanted to build 1 a year or 10 a year. We had guys that could finance it, and we had guys that could build it, and then we had banks that could, do the equipment finance. So you got to find the right partners for the right stage.
Dude,
they may not have been the right people for numbers 1 through 3, but once we got to numbers 10 through 60, we had a great team that was able to run as fast as we could.
This is where I wanted to get to in the conversation, because off camera prior, we were talking about spending versus investing money, and then spending versus investing in time. And I think it's really relevant right now because, dude, so think about it. You are buying real estate, building structures and everything else. If, there is, I would say it's less than a 1-strike policy on the wrong partner, because now it's when the property's already been purchased and blueprints have already been drawn and permits have been pulled and so on and so forth. If a partner drops the ball way down the line, the impact is great.
That is true. It's big impact, but it's also, a lot of learning to get to that point, right? And the other thing is, there's that famous quote about the guy who makes $1 million mistake on the factory, and he goes into his boss's office and says, "Okay, I assume I'm fired." And the boss goes, "Fired? What are you talking about? I just spent $1 million to educate you.
Oh wow.
I'm keeping you forever." And so that's how I look at it too. And part of my leadership philosophy and journey is I think leadership is all about balancing truth and grace. Right? Too much truth without enough grace is too harsh, and can cause a bad reaction, and it doesn't sink into the soil the right way, right? It's like the parable of throwing the seeds on concrete. But too much grace without truth is too permissive.
Agreed.
And you without holding people accountable, there's no growth in learning that, right? So it's all about balancing truth and grace when you're leading people. I stole that shamelessly from Bill Robinson, who was the president of my university, Whitworth, who's a great leadership author and teacher. And so even when it comes to partners, right, and you're talking about a construction firm or something, you got to have a little bit of grace, because they're human too, and chances are they're going to learn, never make that mistake again.
Right.
Versus if you go throw them out the door and pick out another construction firm, they might make the same mistake because they haven't made it before, and everybody's going to make that mistake one time.
The biggest mistake I've been guilty of the last few years in business is keeping a couple key folks too long.
That's a tough one.
It is, because I wanted to fix them.
Yeah.
I wanted them to work.
If you're a coach, right? If you're a coach naturally,
yeah,
that's always a downfall.
It was such a challenge, but at the same time, it was like all the other people where, my decision to not make change affected those other people. And at the end of the day, it dawned on me one time, I'm like, I'm literally putting this person above everybody else in the company, including my own family, and my own health. My own mental health. It's what in your eyes, how do you know? Because again, I think that's a great statement you made. Like, no, that $1 million lesson you learned, that's an investment.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you know it's an investment versus, this dude, this ain't, because again, as an athlete, how do you know, like, how do you know that, like, man, let's just give them another shot.
Yeah.
That was a required piece of learning in their journey. They're going to get there versus, a year too long, you're like, dang.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between, it's like things that are coachable versus, fundamental traits that are not going to change. It's one thing to have a great person with a great attitude. They make a mistake, they learn from it, and they never do it again, versus somebody who's just a bad actor on your team or has an ego or selfish or whatever it's going to be. You can try to coach those people. And that's where you go back, going back to truth and grace. I fall a little too far on the grace side of the spectrum most often as a leader, which means oftentimes keeping people too long and not holding people accountable. If I had to pick one side or the other, I'd still choose to follow on the grace side versus not.
Sure.
But that is one of the consequences. And so you got to be able to look and say, is it really actually being graceful to keep somebody in a position where they're not succeeding or where they're affecting the rest of your team negatively, right?
There's always the one that got away, right? Whether it's dating or hiring or whatever else. But like at the same time, like, when you do give somebody that extra shot and it works, you never regret it.
Totally.
You never look back and say, I wish I hadn't have, that worked out. I wish I hadn't have did it.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing about history is it's only viewed with 20/20 vision.
Yeah.
But man, it's so hard because these are people and we all love and care about our people.
Totally.
And like,
and you watch, things like Ted Lasso, where you got some great redemption stories, right?
Yes.
And that's part of the beauty of that show is you've got Roy and you've got Jamie and you've got even, Nate, you've got all these stories of that's how we want it to work out in real life.
Yeah.
And you've got these people on your team where it's like, no, I can turn them around or I can change their attitude, or the reality is life isn't a TV show. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's true, but there's also times where you're going to be better off just saying, hey, this isn't a good fit. And for the good of the team, we got to trade you.
And, I always took responsibility. It's like, I felt like if they were failing, it was on me because I wasn't a good enough a leader. Right. I was like, well, what could I do different?
Preach.
What could I do different? And then at the same time, it was my fault that I kept them too long. And, there was some folks that are still here today that by keeping those people, it even put them in angst and gave, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, man. It's,
but that's the sign of a good leader. The fact that you take responsibility, same thing, right? At the end of the day, first you look in the mirror and say, is there anything I could do better or could have done better to set this person up for success?
Yeah.
Or did I create an environment that didn't have the clarity that they all needed to work together, or the right goals or the right incentives? Incentives are everything. People, subconsciously, whether you like it or not, are going to follow whatever they're incentivized to do.
Yeah.
And so as the leader, your job is to create an environment where you have clarity, you have the right incentives and the right alignment, so that then it becomes clear, like if somebody is still not performing or letting their team down, it's not because you didn't set them up the right way, but it's because okay, now you need to make a change.
Well, it's also too, over time you get way better at reading people. You start to notice patterns that maybe those people don't even notice about themselves.
Yeah.
So everything you can learn from everything, every experience, including letting people stay too long and whatnot. But man, it's again, first of all, I think that the only way, like, everything has to be my fault or else I can't fix it. You know what I mean? So like you have to. I think everything's my fault. So and that's when you can just admit that. It's like, all right, well, now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Versus if it's somebody else's, well, they got to fix it.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Somebody who likes to be a problem solver or control everything, it's actually easier if it is your fault, because that means you have the power to fix it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And then too, like, you start to, when you're picking up people's patterns and everything else, you start to realize that maybe those people that let you down, when you actually look at them, you're like, man, the foundation just wasn't there. Like or they were just in the wrong position.
Yeah.
It's funny on a football team, if you just take two out of all those football players that are on a team, the center and the quarterback, and you just flip them around and change position, the whole thing falls apart. Yeah. You know what I mean? Something so small. You literally move two people a foot.
Yeah.
And the whole entire thing falls apart. So the positioning is everything, the skill set. And
totally. And I think I'd say that's one of my superpowers in these businesses has been identifying talent and like finding the right spot for the right person. Done really good job at that. The harder thing is you can see individual talents and how they can do a job really well, but then being able to put together the playbook and teach them how to work with all the other people you put into place. Yeah. That's, I think, even more challenging. That's what I'm still working on.
Being, I was always taught growing up, better to be a good guy than a nice guy. A nice guy is going to tell you what you need to hear, even if it's true, and a good guy is going to tell you. Yeah, man.
That hits right here. I've got that problem.
So we're connected today because of the great Emily Berg. All right, she's actually in the building today. All right, so I'm so grateful for her lining us up. So can I put you on the spot for a minute? Can we have a little fun?
Of course.
All right. So you're a pro, and again, honesty is everything. And the best feedback I get when we're done today, I'm going to ask you what I could do better as a host. All right, because I want to be the best. And the purpose of this podcast is to leverage my relationship with SiriusXM, and it's going to be on there one day, right? So that's what we're doing here. All right. So as a guy you've got to be pretty darn good at reading people. All right. We've been together as we sit right now about an hour and a half. I want some honest, real feedback about old Nick sitting over here today. All right. Just based on what you've gathered so far, based on talks pre-production, before the cameras were on, and since we've been recording, and maybe what you heard or did some stuff on your own. It's like I already knew before you came in. I'm like, all right, man, I don't know how friendly this guy is. I don't know how outgoing he is, but I definitely know that he's a guy that knows how to get it done and don't stop until it happens. That's just in the track record, right? So that's what I knew about you walking in. Yeah. All right. So and you came in and it's totally backed up, right? So this has been refreshing for me. I'm a fly on the wall with somebody that's achieved things in life that you're further ahead in life than I am in certain places. Yeah. So I'm learning today, man. So, all right. Old Nick, what you got for old Nick today? What would you say about Nick today?
Oh, man. All right. I got three things. One, the team is amazing. Hospitality coming in here in the studio and the team. And I felt like not having done this much before, this is only my second or third time being on camera at all, has just made it so fun and easy walking in here.
Attaboy.
Yeah, Franco, Jensen, Dale, it's been awesome. Number two, your ability, Nick's ability to help me get out of my shell and like get ready to have fun with this and get pumped up is like, I'm a pretty steady kind of, calm and collected person, not a little bit on purpose, but also it's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun, like backstage, and Nick getting me pumped up and be like, hey man, this is exciting. And you said, if you can't be proud of yourself and excited about what you're doing, how can you expect anybody else to be?
That's right.
And like, that means a lot to me. And then the third thing is the questions and some of the insights that we've had in conversation. I'm like, man, there's a lot more here than meets the eye.
Yeah, baby.
Nick's got a lot. He's got, you know, he's got a good brain under there, and I can tell, and whether it's come out in all these episodes or, there's a lot going on under there, and I know there's some real deep insight and leadership.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of positive self-talk that's on purpose that happens on a regular basis. Because, dude, when you are a leader and everything's on you,
yeah,
dude, that weight can get heavy sometimes. And like if you're not poised and positioned and trained to be able to hold that weight for long periods of time, it can crush you.
It can, and it's lonely at the top too,
dude. And a powerful self-talk and a good healthy mindset about yourself, is all that's required to be able to take on all that weight.
Yeah.
Right. So, literally, I say it all the time. Sometimes on a note on Facebook or Instagram, I just put it on there just because I'm reminding myself, I'm not a horse you bet on. I'm the horse you bet on. All right. I truly believe that way. I was talking to some folks about a book deal the other day, and that was, any final thoughts, Nick? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm the horse you should be betting on.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? So let's go.
Yeah.
Are we ready to rock and roll? So I firmly believe that, but then I'm going to go back it up.
That's right.
Right. So that's the other thing, is I'm gonna figure out how to go back and up. And I wasn't always that way. One of the things that helped me get there, it's funny how God puts things in your life that you didn't even know you needed. Obviously, my wife is absolutely incredible. However, I didn't even know how to appreciate her until we had a child together. And then all of a sudden I started to see life through a different lens. And I started to see a young boy that it's my job to make sure that he knows what I know so he can be a better version of what I am today. And then all of a sudden you start realizing the way that you're talking to your spouse. I'm like, well, if he ever talked to a woman like that, I would kill him. You know, and all of a sudden it's like, again, history's looked at with the 2020 lens.
Yep.
And I never will forget it, dude. On his 5th birthday, I had a meltdown, and I had a gift in the fact that I was able, it's his birthday, and I'm going nuts over how he reacted to a present that we gave him. And I remember, like, it was almost like I left my body and I was watching myself literally lose it on a 5-year-old, and the look on his face, and I didn't recognize the person that I saw.
Yeah. And
that one moment changed. Like, that was a huge transition in life. I remember it still to this day. I get emotional thinking about it because he was such a young. I've always held him. If he was 5, I expected him to be 15.
Yeah.
If he's 15, I expect him to be 30. Just high expectations for him, you know. So, but that was a. I don't even know how I went there, but that was a crazy moment in the fact that, like, again, how did I go from that dude to the guy that we are today? It's taking all the things put in life, the perspective, and then an accountability. And I think outside of Jesus, God's greatest gift He gives anybody is a child. And again, it changed. What are some things that? How did you get to become the person you are today?
Man,
because you're like of a fraction of a percent in the world, you know.
Yeah. Well, they say the best thing you can do in life is pick your parents well. So I did a really good job on that. I got a mom and a dad who are incredibly caring and supportive, and both just did everything they could to build a life and environment for myself. And I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. And
what they do for a living?
My parents. My mom is a super mom, so she was everything from a driver to cook to a coach to sewing all the costumes for the school play and fostering 100 animals, and there's nothing she can't do. My dad started a business when I was a kid as a financial advisor, so he started doing life and disability, and now manages a firm in Sacramento doing wealth management. But I'll tell you what, he has worked so hard. He built this whole business himself without an education in that business, and yet the first swim meet of mine that he ever missed was my first meet in college.
Wow. Okay.
So I remember my first race. It was in Portland, swimming against Pacific University, swimming my 100 butterfly. I called him right before the race. I called him right after the race. because it was the first time I swam without him on the sideline.
Gotcha.
After being a business owner and all the things that he did, he was still always there, either as a coach or as a fan. So that's the support that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for him, he showed me how to, how he treated my mom and my family, and how to be a big brother to his siblings, and how to be a son to my grandparents. And I always thought, if I can be half the man he is, I'll be successful. And my mom taught me, a lot of things, but two things. One is, what does unconditional love and compassion look like? Not just for our family, but for other families and for animals and nature and everything. And two, that from the time I was a tiny little kid, it's that I could accomplish anything I put my mind to.
Let's go.
And that everything is figure outable, which I love. You have a sign on your desk I saw. Mm-hmm. I say that all the time. Everything is figure outable.
Absolutely.
Which is what makes me think, when you were talking about, your son and your lesson, it's like, man, we're never done learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I don't care if you're 25 or 65, right? It's like, you're never done.
The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. It's funny how, it's you mentioned all the things that you can do and that you can overcome. Like, all the limits that we have are self-inflicted. Like, you know what I mean? Most of the limitations that I put upon myself, I had never even tried. I just decided with zero anything to measure, with zero information, that like, I can't do that. It's not, I could learn to do it. So there was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad that changed my life in a lot of different ways. But one of the biggest reasons is because in the book, Robert Kiyosaki talks all the time about, instead of saying I can't do that, as just change the word can't with how can I?
How can I do it? Totally. And the other thing he says, this was a big influence on me too. I give that book to anybody that asks for advice.
I'm going to
start with that, as among other things. The best investment you can make is in yourself, right?
That's
right. He talks about, like you said earlier, don't spend your time, invest your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's straight out of Rich Dad, is invest your time and your money into your own capacity to then create more wealth and create more time.
I'm in a really cool spot in business, in the fact that I'm able to get in rooms that I used to not be able to get into. But at the same time, I'm kind of like in the middle of those rooms and the old rooms that I'm coming from. And the people that are in the old rooms, nothing against them, but they're not there yet. It's going to be, if they ever get into those other rooms, they're going to be a while. And that's one of the hardest things to do right now. And it was one of the hardest things to get to where I'm at now is like, I had to ultimately come to grips that the people that I was spending all my time with, they weren't a part of where I was going. They weren't going where I was going, which means we can't be travel in the same vehicle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to part ways, because they're going one direction and I'm going the other.
Yeah.
And if we're going to remain the same vehicle, they're either going where I'm going or I'm going where they're going.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, because I also think that some of those people in the old rooms are what help you stay grounded too.
I agree with that. So how do you decide? I know how I do it. How do you decide who is a part of your past life that is going in a different place, but you still need them to be a part of your current life, just for what you just said, the grounding, or remember where you came from, or whatever. Maybe I have a small group of fellas, 3, as a matter of fact, that no matter where we go in life, we always come back. And it's funny because they're not, only one of them was, actually, I guess both of them were, two out of 3 were teammates in baseball. And the other one has been a business partner for 20 years. But like, those are my guys. No matter which direction we're going in life, we come back together a few times a year and kick it like we never left.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lucky place to count yourself, especially as guys. That's actually less common.
Yeah.
And I have a similar thing. I mean, I've got a small group of best friends that, I've had since 4th grade or high school.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you make a lot of friends along the way through business, and I have friends through Topgolf and college and all these places, but somehow the ones that have still stuck around in that core group are like, have been there the whole time, because it's like they know who I was at the beginning and been on this journey together.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to, even though we don't work together in any way, and like these friends are in such a different place, different industry, it's like have nothing to do with where I'm going from a career or a building or entrepreneurship perspective, but they know me, who I am at my core, and my strengths and weaknesses and foundation as a person. And so as I'm building in all these other ways through my businesses and my career, it's like, I don't want to lose sight of the things that made me great in the first place and gave me that constitution to do those things.
Yeah.
And they're kind of that, there's a guy named Todd Bolsinger,
Okay.
who's a writer. He wrote a book called Canoeing the Mountain.
Okay.
But he has this metaphor about rest and growth and reflection. And it's sort of like, it's like this metaphor of a blacksmith where the process of blacksmithing, it's like there's the heat. You're a piece of metal, right? And it's all about becoming tempered steel. And if you're a piece of metal, you got to put it in the fire to heat it up. And that is the trials and the tribulations and the work of like the things that you go through, the adversities and those things that heat you up and get you ready for change. And then there is there's the hammer, right? As like shaping you, which is the reflection of like, okay, what did I actually learn from that? And how am I going to grow from it? And then there's the water you stick it in to then cool it off. And that's the sort of like period of rest and settling where it's like, okay, I just got really stretched. I got heated up. I got hammered and formed into a new shape. And now I need a period of rest to like kind of reset before I go back into the fire again and then get reshaped and get hammered on again. But the piece that's missing you have is the anvil. The anvil that is holding you firmly in place as a foundation as you're going through this change and evolution. And that's the people in your life. That's the community that like, that's not changing. And those are the people that hold you firmly and, give you that foundation as you are going through this change. And that's how I look at like my family and my close friends that I've had for 20 years. So no matter what I'm doing out there and the heat I'm going through or the hammer that's hitting me or the water that I'm jumping into, they're the anvil that I sit on that are unchanging and stable.
There's all right. So I think I heard it from, there's two things I heard from the pulpit, two stories I heard from the pulpit that I loved. Number one was, it was a pastor. He was saying, hey man, sometimes you can't evolve to the person that you're going to be with the people that you kind of grew up with. Because he basically said, he's like, dude, they know too much. You know what I mean? They're always going to bring you back. But at the same time, the same pastor, he basically was like, he told a story about he used an axe and how iron sharpens iron. Yeah. Even though I think an axe is made of steel. I'm not a craftsman, so everybody can have some fun with that. But he was basically like, if iron sharpens iron, but you use the axe to chop wood, but if you don't ever take the axe back to iron to sharpen it, if all you do is just keep pounding wood, what you end up with is damaged wood and a dull axe, right? Totally. And it's damaging to both sides. Totally. So how do you decide, like for me, it's those three guys that are healthy for me, that are from my past, that are healthy for my future. It took me a long time to figure out who those people were and why they were, more importantly, which is also why I don't want to say you left people behind. It's just we're going to different places, and when we pass each other and come back together, we can say hi and catch up and so on and so forth. But they're not a part of everyday life, Yeah. How do you if you want to get healthier, well, you're going to measure that, whether it's losing weight or I feel better or whatever it may be. How do you measure if the right people if you're surrounding yourself with the right people?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think. I talked about this actually. One of these guys, I was just at his bachelor party and gave a speech about this. You make time for the things you care about.
Well, let's go.
Right? And it's like what he taught me is what it looks like to be intentional with a relationship. I mean, the funny thing is, this is one of my best friends. I'll shout you out. Hey, Cassidy. We never even went to school together. We grew up in the same town. We swam on different swim teams. We had kind of the same friends. We went to different colleges across the country, but it was like we just met when we were kids through friends, and then we got in a band together. And no matter where we were, law school in New York, living in Seattle, living in Las Vegas, LA, doesn't matter where it was like always found time to hang out and be together. And now you fast forward a decade, and it's like we now are back in the same town, living 5 minutes down the street from each other. Yeah. And we have lunch every Tuesday. But it's because we spent all these years across the country where it'd be so easy to just completely lose track. But we were both intentional about that relationship. But the important thing there that answers your question is that it wasn't work to be intentional. It's not hard.
That's it. That's it.
Right? That's the thing, is it wasn't unnatural. It was just like, it just happened because you just make time for the things you care about.
Dude, that's so good because there's so much there. But so one of my big things I'm on right now, especially raising a teenage boy, okay, and it's something that I really feel like this is of the keynotes that I'm doing this year. This is like what I'm hitting on the hardest. Okay, so there's a couple things. So first of all, I'm on my son. We've taught him to time block. Okay, so he does. It's called his power list. He writes down all of his each night. He writes down all of his critical tasks for the next day. He puts them on there. Figures out what he's going to do. He's got 20 minutes of book reading that he does each night, where he writes what he learned from the book,
Awesome.
and so on and so forth. So, but it's cool because it's like, let's say he doesn't have school on a Saturday. And on his power list says he's going to wake up at 8:00, and 9:00 rolls around and he's stumbling out of bed. No harm, no foul.
Couldn't be me.
No harm, no foul. He didn't have anything going on. He didn't miss anything. But I'm wearing him out now. I'm like, dude, why even? You told yourself, you made a commitment to wake up at 8, and then you didn't wake up till 9. Okay, so so even though no harm came from that, your mind recognizes that as a loss. You lied. All right. So as a baseball player, at some point in time, let's say he's up at bat and the game's on the line, and he's standing in the box and he says, "I got this." Well, if you've lied to yourself over and over and over again, how do you know that? How does your brain know it can trust you this time?
You know what? There's a great quote. Actually, sports writer Grantland Rice, or Grant Rice, he has this quote about, you should look it up. It's about, you have to train your judgment like you would any other muscle. You have to train your judgment and your discipline so that you can learn to rely on yourself.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, so check even further. All right. So all the choices that I've made in my life led me to this moment right here, right? Every single one of them, the subconscious and the conscious ones, led me right here.
Totally.
Okay. So if I'm not where I want to be, I could get in my time machine and go back to all the choices I've ever made. Go back to the choice that led me to this. I mean, I'm Doc Brown and Marty McFly here, right? To change time, but that's the craziest thing. And Coach Michael Burt said this from stage one time, and it was great. He literally looked at the audience. He goes, "Guys, Olympic athletes do not eat Cheez-Its." Something so simple. He's like, they just don't. Not one Cheez-It.
Yeah.
It's a disciplinary thing, because you can't be the best in the world and do what all the non-best and the people of the world do. Yep. My son wants to play baseball at Yankee Stadium. As a matter of fact, he wants to play center field at Yankee Stadium. I played at a high level. I hit my goal. My goal was to play professional baseball. I didn't know how to set goals, is what I figured out. I wanted to play for the Yankees, but I never said that. I did what I said I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So my son's like, "Dad, I'm going to play center field at Yankee Stadium." All right, dude. Well, I know 0 people that did that. All right. And I played with a lot of great players. I played with 0 that played center field at Yankee Stadium, which means none of your friends are going to be playing baseball at Yankee Stadium probably, yeah? He goes, "That's correct." I'm like, so if you do what they do, you're going to end up where they end up. And that's where it gets difficult, right? So when he has, let's just say, this is where all the Karens online like to gripe at me. When I'm like, "Hey, man, when you drink that Dr. Pepper, is that getting you closer to Yankee Stadium or further away?"
Yeah.
And that's when everybody's like, "He's a kid, let him be a kid." I'm like, well, first of all, what does that even mean? How long he's 15, so how long is he a kid for?
Yeah.
But I think that Dr. Pepper is earned. I'm like, dude, did you do everything to get to Yankee Stadium? And then if you have that Dr. Pepper, is it going to set you back or not? It's kind of like, if I want to lose weight and I've got this timeline to do it, is that giant foot-long sub from Jersey Mike's gonna affect me getting there on time or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're riding the train to Yankee Stadium, since we're on Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, man, there's the gift shop. Well, the train's leaving, whether I'm on it or not. And if I choose to go to the gift shop first, it's going to make me late to Yankee Stadium because I'm going to miss that train.
Yeah.
That's what, I don't know why that's such a mythical thing for people to figure out. It was for me anyways, that dude, all these, maybe too many choices were made for me.
Maybe, or there's too many choices that you are making because you're expected to, or you think you're expected to, right?
That's it.
I mean, how many, this is something that's come up for us a lot in both my wife and I, and how we spend our time and how I've done all the things I've done in 10 years. I'm 32 years old.
What?
And
bro, you got the world by the balls. Holy cow.
So, but it's because I've probably worked as many hours as the average 42-year-old.
Okay.
Right. I spent my entire early 20s working my absolute butt off. I mean, I said earlier, part of what I've done well, I picked great parents, but I also had a great mentor.
Who was it?
And Eric Anderson.
Okay.
So he hired me out of college. He, when he needed somebody to work on Topgolf with him, right place at the right time. I just, he found me and brought me in for an internship, basically as a favor to a friend, mutual friend. And then I think he said, okay, well, this kid will do, got some wet clay here we can mold. And basically threw me into, CEO training school from day one.
Wow.
And so I've been following him around, learning how to be a leader, how to build businesses, how to do all these things for a decade.
Yeah.
And then he also gave me opportunities to get out there and try it for myself, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, like mid-20s. And he like put me in charge of something to go figure it out. And so, but I also along the way have had to make a lot of choices to not do a lot of things my friends were doing. Right. I mean, I worked every single,
and it's hard.
I worked every single weekend except maybe Easter and Christmas for like 2 years when we were building Topgolf. And the advice was, and it wasn't just because it was like, oh, we're so busy. It was when we got started, Eric said, if you really want to do this and you're as ambitious as you say you are, don't make any plans for the next 2 years. Not because you know what's going to happen, but because you should expect that something is going to happen and you're going to want to be a part of it. And so just, and then guess what? When you're in the office at 6 a.m. every Saturday morning, that means you can't go out Friday night.
That's right.
And so I spent basically my whole early 20s to mid 20s, not going out, not drinking much on the weekends and traveling for work, and a lot of hours. I worked my freaking ass off. But guess what? It got me to where I am now. And then you look at people who don't at the same age, who are not in the same place as you. And it's like, well, it's not fair. It's like nothing is fair or not fair. Number one, I got super lucky. I absolutely did, in both the education, the opportunities, the family, all those things. But at the same time, when those opportunities presented themselves to me, I worked 10 times as hard as anybody else.
Life's fair. Everybody's price is just different.
Yeah, there you go.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
Going back to the people and how do you know when to part ways and invest further, I think that there's two versions of everybody, and that is the person's own how they see themselves and how everybody else. You always see those person where you're like, man, like they should have made it and they just didn't. Everybody else saw something in that person that they didn't see in themselves, or else it would have happened. And the people that make it, it's that rare combination where they see what everybody else sees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, and I get, where I get lost is like, I see something in somebody that they don't see. And that's all I'm trying to do is convince them of that, which is why I feel like I let them down when that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I feel that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Dude, this is, I mean, Aaron Vaccaro, this is awesome, isn't it, bro? Like I'm telling you, it's awesome to get experts like this in the lab. So, all right. So where was I going from here? We've been talking tons about leadership, multitasking, time, money, spending versus investing. You were a college athlete. And I know you're giving a lot of credit to your mentors and so on and so forth, but dude, like you earned that spot.
Oh, thank you.
You had to. You did, like
it's both, right? You have to get the lucky, but you also got to work for it.
Well, you know,
when opportunity strikes.
Some people get in the room and immediately know, and everybody knows they don't belong there. But sometimes the people that should have been in the room the whole time, when they finally get in there, that's when they have that moment and they just seize it, right? It's like there's that artist all the kids love. Is it Benson Boone?
Oh, yeah.
That guy came out of nowhere and is doing flips on these award shows and whatnot. It's like, well, that guy's a freaking star. Like, why has he not been a star this whole time, you know? It's when you get that moment, it just kind of happens, you know? It's the Derek Jeters and the Michael Jordans, those guys that when they get that moment, it just bam, slam dunk, and the place goes wild. They make a statement right out of the gates.
You know, most overnight successes are not really overnight, right?
That's
right.
We
used to say that about Topgolf. Topgolf was like this 15-year overnight success where, you know, it started in 2000. came to the U.S. in 2004.
First time I heard about the concept was like 2007 or 8. There was a dude that owned a bar on Broadway, and he was talking about bringing a Topgolf to town. We were all like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, but it wasn't until really like 2015, 2016, when we opened Topgolf Las Vegas that it sort of rocketed to the national stage. Because it's like, if you're part of the skyline of Las Vegas, you're basically a national brand, right?
Fact.
MGM, Cosmopolitan, Bellagio. Now you see Topgolf. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, just this new thing. It's like, man, we've been working on this thing for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, in the case of people, right, it's like, I've been working my butt off and learning and doing all these things, and I've been working for amazing people that have plenty of success and notoriety and things, and I've been really happy to be part of the team.
So we've talked a lot about Topgolf. We've talked a little bit about Liquor Lab. You got a lot of other stuff going on. All right. So anything worth mentioning that you'd want to talk about today? And I really want to get into kind of like, once you get to a place like this, I'm sure financially you're probably pretty comfortable. I'm sure that there's some, you could probably just go into coast mode at 32 if you want to. I mean, dude, like, again, showing you how important, like in my 20s, after I was doing baseball at 27, I did realize all my friends that graduated school when I did have had almost 10 years in the workforce, and I'm just on day one. There was a lot of FOMO that I struggled with that, it was when I was 35 that I decided to make the decisions you made in your 20s.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why I'm in my 40s now and where I'm at,
Well, like I said, I got lucky with a couple things. One, I've got a dad who's a financial advisor and was an entrepreneur. And so he taught me from a young age about saving and investing. I also had, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, picked that up at some point and thought, man, I realized that I'm starting to make money pretty young, and time is the most powerful tool you have when investing, right? And so it's like, man, if all I do is I start putting some money away in my 20s, if it's growing at 5 to 10% a year for 40 years, like,
yeah,
I don't, the money is going to take care of itself. So as long as you follow a good path of like, you always save first and you invest and you put it somewhere where it's going to compound. Compounding interest is the most powerful force in the universe, right?
Yes.
And so that's why it's like compound interest plus time. And the earlier you start, the more compounding it gets, and exponential growth, right? It's going to look like not that much for a long time. But then when you get into the second, third, fourth decade, it's going to look like, oh my gosh, where did this all come from?
Yeah.
Because it's been compounding forever. So I had a mentor, in Eric too, who's been extremely financially successful, but he taught me, when he was my age, he was working on Wall Street. He and his wife both were bankers in the 80s, and they lived in a little 1-bedroom apartment in New York, and they just saved everything. And because of, they didn't have the same lifestyle that all these other Wall Street people did. And because of that, they became super comfortable. And so it's like, I've just lived in an apartment until, I finally bought a house in Sacramento a year and a half ago, a couple years ago. But my mortgage is only, $2,000 a month, which is less than, some of my siblings are paying for 1-bedroom apartments where they're living.
I think my wife misplaced that much yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. But think about how much, like, when you keep your expenses super low and you live way within your means, all that mental space is freed up for thinking about investing and growth and investing in yourself and all those things.
There's you hear a lot of thought leaders say fail forward. You learn from experience. You learn. There's all the losses are lessons that you learn along the way, and then you got Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan that are like, Game 7 was easy because we practiced. It was Game 7 every practice. So when Game 7 came along, it was just another at bat or another game or another quarter.
Yeah.
But then there's people that like say, you don't fail forward. It's why would you want to be excited about failing at anything, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it all comes down to experience. Experience is, Derek Jeter, he practiced Game 7. Practice is the key word. It's experience. He had already lived it in his life over and over again. We all daydreamed as kids about certain things.
Yeah.
Right. And sadly enough, we don't end up doing those things that we dreamed about usually when we become an adult. But experience is the key. So when you run into that, when you're running in like you got experience in your 20s that I didn't get in until I was in my 30s. So at the end of the day, the experiences are the most important thing. Kevin O'Leary talks about all the time, entrepreneurship is for 20-year-olds because you got time to recover when it all falls apart and so on and so forth.
That's true.
And dude, like all my biggest losses were in my 20s and early 30s, and it's the 40s have been awesome. They've been awesome because of those things. You're going to go through them at some point to get where you want to go, right?
Experience. It's funny you say that. We talk a lot about, especially over the last few years when I was starting to get into leadership in positions without experience, right? I just had observation, but my partner Eric would always tell me, deep thinking is a substitute for experience.
That's what I was going to say. You were out of that observation. You weren't just a fly on the wall, and then you stopped thinking about it. That's why most W-2 employees aren't attractive to me, because the moment they leave the spot, they're not thinking about you and your what you do together anymore.
Yeah, right. But it's it's one thing to just say, oh, I just need to have it happen to me or experience it to learn from it. I actually think really like deep reflection and deep thinking through the potential outcomes and the process or the business model or whatever it is. You don't have to just I don't think you just have to experience things for yourself, right? Like Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's partner and was just a brilliant guy. If you ever have a chance, go watch some of his talks. But, Charlie Munger is like only, an idiot learns from their own experience. Like wise people learn from the experiences of other people, and so getting to watch and that's why I read so much too. Like I'm a big student of history. I read not as much as I'd like to, but still probably, 30 books a year.
Wow, that's a lot. That's good.
Study the, everyone from the entrepreneurs and the old, titans of industry to, American presidents and leaders and different people. It's like, there's been a billion lifetimes lived before us, and a lot of them have been very instructive. And so both studying other people, studying the people around you, and just thinking through, using the brain that God gave you, right? It's a powerful tool that you don't have to just like passively go through and experience things in real time to learn from them. You can learn a lot without having to go through that yourself.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, Aaron, the biggest thing, like Brooke Thomas said from a stage one time, she said, the definition of impact is when you take your God-given uniqueness and apply it to the marketplace.
Nice.
And I was like, yeah, that's good. So the biggest travesty that I've come across today is that there's not enough of this content out there that other people can go find. The books that you read that did that for you, bro, you got to give it back. It's time.
All right.
It is time. I'm telling you, because again, this is like, you're one of those people that when you leave, when you leave the room, I'm going to feel better about myself and more inspired about everything I'm doing. I'm going to leave with the confidence because your confidence is rubbing off on me.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And it's, that is, what we've learned is, one of the coolest things ever is when somebody walks in that has never met me face to face before, person to person. We've never had two-way conversation. And we take a picture, they shake my hand like, dude, you said something on your Instagram that changed my life. And it's like, well, how cool is that?
That's awesome. No, I can't even believe this has been such a rewarding and like thought-provoking and fulfilling conversation after having not spent any time together before, which also I guess is a travesty. But
that's right,
man. It's been so fun.
So, well, what's next for you, dude? So, again, folks, he's going to be doing a lot more appearances like this. I can promise that. And there's going to be so many versions of his story, and there's stories amongst stories. His life is a book, and there's just a bunch of chapters, and we're only covering a couple of the chapters today. Okay,
yeah.
So there's a lot left to tell. But what's next for you? What are you excited about? All right, so 3 questions. What's next for you guys in business?
Yep.
What are you most excited about? And then what's the next book you're going to read?
Oh man. Okay. What's next for us in business? So, we're always continuing to grow our investment firm, WestRiver Group. So we invest in tech and, and broadly in innovation and in experience. Right now, what I'm excited about is building Liquor Lab. We're the lead investor behind it, and we've got a great plan to grow that business. I'm super excited about what we're doing there. So if you're ever in Nashville or in Louisville, please come visit us at Liquor Lab. Just liquorlab.com. You can buy tickets to any kind of cocktail class you want. We do margaritas, whiskey, gin, movie cocktails, whatever. Please come visit. And then what is the next book that I'm going to read? Oh man, I actually just got a book called Abundance by Ezra Klein, and his co-author, which is interesting because the other company I run that we haven't talked about at all is called Singularity University, which is a pretty well-known brand. I've been privileged to be an investor and board member for a while, and then they asked me to step in as president a couple years ago, and we've really grown that brand. But one of the founders is Peter Diamandis, who wrote a book years ago called Abundance, all about how technology is basically going to help us create a world of abundance with free energy and free food and all these things. And basically, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities.
That's
so
right.
It's like you said about applying your God-given talent to the marketplace. I mean, the power of human ingenuity and innovation, the inevitable growth and advancement of technology, and the power of the free market entrepreneurship can build businesses to solve these huge problems in the world. And so that's what we teach people about at Singularity. But Ezra Klein, who's a really well-known, writer and he's got a podcast and different things. He just wrote a book also called Abundance. That's kind of a different take, I think, on that subject. And so I'm excited to get into that.
So a lot of folks use a podcast as a way to figure out who they need to be following, who they need to be reaching out to do business with, or who they need to become their businesses they're going to become a customer of, or whatever it may be. So who is it exactly that we're talking to today? Like so the folks that the Nicks out there that would be like, dude, I got to work with Aaron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who are we talking to? So that way when they're listening today, they know, oh yeah, they're talking to me.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, I'd say there's a couple people that I love to talk to, and I'm talking to right now. If you're ever in town in Nashville and you want to have a great experience, you want to learn a little bit about the art of mixology and making cocktails, then come visit us and follow our journey at Liquor Lab as we build it. The other group I talk to is anybody who's interested in the future, like leaders. If you're a corporate executive, an entrepreneur, a government leader, even come find us at Singularity University. We have some amazing programs where we bring in experts on AI and genetic engineering and quantum computing, and it's the only university where we teach people about the future instead of the past. So come apply to a program and see what you can learn about the future.
No doubt. And folks, anytime you're dealing with anybody who has had a key role in taking a business from 7, 8, 9 to 10 figures, anytime you put a B in front of the illion, it's a big deal. You need to listen to those people. They know what they're doing. And to go from 90 million to 1.1 billion in revenue, that's over 10x growth. And then a $2 billion acquisition, and then knowing how just orchestrating a purchase of that size is its own animal.
That story is a whole podcast in and of itself, right? Because Topgolf was supposed to go public on its own. We spent 2 years prepping for IPO, and the IPO date was I'll just say was March of 2020.
Yeah,
and so we went from 100 million a month in revenue, getting ready to ring the bell on the stock exchange, to the next day furloughing 22,000 people and shutting down the business because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it would have been a slightly different story. Luckily, we had a great partner in Callaway who was already an investor. And then, once we got halfway through the pandemic, we made a deal for them to acquire the business so that we could keep going. But it was a whole great adventure in business that deserves recollecting someday.
No doubt. And it just goes to show you how you got to be a little bit flexible. Like life's going to throw things at you, and even when you type that address into the GPS and you're going to get there on time and everything's good, there's all these other factors that could come into play and change it.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the eventual goal. You guys kind of reshape the plan. And
volatility is a real thing, right? It's like trying to fight uncertainty and volatility is like trying to fight gravity.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
So much gold today, dude. Again, I hope as we bring this sucker to a close, I hope we covered. This was this is what I wanted to know. So I had a great time.
I'm sure the great thing about you and your audience is like the things that you're interested in. Just follow your passions and the questions that you have, and all of us along the way are going to learn something too, right?
Well, it's and one of the coolest things about what we're doing today is that's the whole theme of the podcast is breaking down the playbook of top performers so others can have that success too, you know. And and the show has some people that everybody knows, and the show has we bring people on the show that not everybody knows yet is the key word, right? So yet is the key word. So when people hear this stuff, they're gonna be like again, I meet people all the time that I'm like, how in the world did I not know that person existed? Like, I need to know that person. You know,
some people are busy working, man.
Absolutely, and it's well, you've hired the right people.
Yeah.
To get the word out there, man, you've hired the right people. So, but dude, the world needs like the wrong people have a megaphone. A lot of the wrong people have a megaphone. We need more people like you to stand up and sing it from the mountaintops.
I appreciate that
because you give people hope, dude.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's actually that's great advice. I agree, and that's it's funny. As I'll leave you with this last kind of it's a reflection or question is, I love to read, and I read books. I read everything I can consume to learn, right? And so that's only possible because people write, and people put their ideas out there, and they take a chance to write the book or write the art, whatever it is. And so I love so much that other people do that. And then at the same time, when I think about writing something myself, I'm just like, who wants to hear from me? Why would I do that?
That's it.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Obviously, you're only who you are because all these other people out there decided to put something out there themselves.
Come on.
And so, that's one of my goals actually is all these things I've learned and thoughts I have and things we think about, to try to put a little pen to paper or maybe just talk to people like you and help us share whatever wisdom I can.
Well, as a father of a 15-year-old, he is. There's, you are most powerfully positioned to serve or give information to the person that you used to be, right? So I got a 15-year-old that has a lot in common with you, man. A lot in common with you. So he needs to hear more from you, baby. Yeah. Come on, bring it.
Let's do it. Yeah, throw him in the pool, run him for a few laps. There's a lot of life to be learned in between sets of hundreds in the swimming pool.
That's it, man. Well, dude, Aaron, thank you so much for the hang today. Any final thoughts for everybody? Anything you want to leave everybody with?
Man, believe and believe.
Amen. Amen. Folks, we're been hanging with Aaron Vaccaro, the Vice President of WestRiver Group, President of Singularity University, and the CEO of Liquor Lab. Check them out on online at liquorlab.com and on Instagram at Liquor Lab and at Aaron Vaccaro. Dude, awesome time today, man. Thank you to the great Emily Berg for bringing us together today.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Nick.
Folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.